with the UPSC. How did you start preparing for the UPSC? What was the motivation? And then also, when did you decide that it was time to give up?
Yeah, very important questions. When to enter and when to exit the process. My story is I wasn't a fan of the civil services exam, or I didn't look up to the services as much while growing up, largely because I didn't have exposure to it. But there was one turning point that happened that made me decide to spend my time preparing for it. And that was when I met a friend's father. I was visiting a friend's place, and I realized that his father is a retired IAS officer. And I got a chance to speak to him at length about the services. And what touched me was some of the stories he shared about his experience. And prior to this discussion, what I thought was that one has to go through a very sort of a stale system, and it's ridden with red tapeism and corruption. And I didn't have a great image of the services, but he changed my thought process, and he made me believe that you can be honest and still go through the system and still make a difference. And I was very touched by some of his gestures, some of his everyday activities, and that made me feel like, yeah, that's a journey I'd want to walk on, and that inspired me to prepare for the services. And I spent a little more than 2 years preparing for it. The first year I made a lot of mistakes, so because I didn't have that background, I was not preparing since college or since my early professional life. I just jumped into it because I got motivated at that point. um, I was a part of the wrong, I signed up for the wrong career guidance. I took the wrong mock tests, and I spent a lot of time preparing for stuff that one should not. And because of that, the first year the results did not come. And when I spoke to some other people, I realized that these are the mistakes that I have made, and I felt that I deserved to give myself that extra year to correct those mistakes and actually give an attempt that I'm proud of. So it was the second year where I actually, I would say that I gave it my all, and I felt that it was my best shot at the civil services. And I was practicing a lot of long answer questions for mains. I also had one foot in the door for the interview. So I was taking care of all the stages. And what happened was in that exam was that I missed my prelims by, I think it was 1.66 or something. It was less than 2 marks. So it was almost like less than a question that I missed the prelims cutoff by. And this was the year where I had spent all my time. Like I knew that the strategies, the books, the guidance, the mock tests, everything that I was doing was what it should be. So when that didn't materialize, it pushed me to reflect and think about what is it that I want to do next, and how much time am I willing to give to this. And of course, you hear stories about your peers and others who perhaps done a master's, or who are doing PhDs, or they've taken on a different job profiles, and that in a way gets to you, and you feel like, no, no, you also need to get back. So all those factors combined made me decide that I think I've given it everything that I could. And internally, that satisfaction came from the fact that I was honest with my work. So it wasn't that I felt like, oh, I wish I had changed this and I could have done better. I changed everything I could. So that made me feel very confident that yes, I've given it a good shot, and I should move forward and see what else is there in life. So that's when I chose to make the exit.
Thanks, Garima. I think that's very must have been very helpful for you as well, because otherwise it's pretty easy to get caught in the cycle of another attempt and yet another attempt, the vicious cycle, as the aspirants like to call it.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely true.
when you did decide to move on, did you face any challenges, say professionally because of the gap years, or even emotionally because you are in a very different mind frame while preparing?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there were quite a few hurdles because one is not working professionally. There is a tendency to get detached from quote unquote how the world works and everything else around it. And just to give you a little context and background, so before starting my preparation, I was already working. I was working at Ashoka University as a part of I was a part of the founding projects team that launched the undergraduate program. And it was a very exciting journey before Ashoka as well. I was working with founders and faculty members, setting up the outreach process, admissions, working with faculty to design workshops. So there was a lot of exciting stuff that I had left behind. And and because that was very taxing, my weekends would go away traveling, etc. I actually had to make that choice whether I wanted to, if I had to prepare for the services, I had to quit my job. Otherwise, it would not be possible to do justice to it. So at that point, I chose to sort of make that exit and full time prepare. Uh, and what happened as a consequence was that for over 2 years, I was not in touch with what's happening. So one thing that I continued to do was, because a lot of students and parents had my number back from the Ashoka days, people would reach out to me and say, "Could you tell us more about this? Could you tell us more about that?" And invariably, I stayed in touch with the student community, and I used to support them in the application work, in the interview preparation, etc. And that was more like a, I never paid that much attention to it. It was more to help students based on the knowledge that I had, but I never thought of it as a career path at that point. And my prime focus was the preparation. So that little bit of touch was there, but I had lost touch with professionally, going to office or understanding how things work. And by that time, Ashoka had also grown, so a lot of new things had happened, and I felt like I did not know what was going on. But at the end of the day, that conversation that you have with yourself is so important, and it doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. Like, there were so many stories I heard from my own family members about when they were preparing for the services and when it didn't work out for them, and we understand. And then there were other success stories. So the peers I was studying with, quite a few cleared the exam, and so you hear everything around you. And what is at that point, what really helped me was that I had stumbled upon Isha Foundation. I had Sadhguru's videos that used to pop up on YouTube on and off. And he used to ask a lot of these intriguing questions and answer in such a logically correct manner that it sort of caught my attention. And I went to Coimbatore to do the inner engineering program. And I should say that that program was a turning point for me completely. I mean, it just centered me in a way that I knew that nothing is going to happen to me. Even if this exam didn't clear, it doesn't matter. And that voice that came from within could not come from anybody outside sharing any tidbits. Like, it had to come from inside, and it gave me the confidence to take that step forward. So I felt, at that point, for me to just find my own grounding, I spent time doing yoga and meditation, and it was so gradual that when I was making the transition, I wanted to start with something that was easy, something that wasn't that wasn't going to be too difficult for me, because I also wanted to just get back into the space. And when I'm talking about civil services preparation, I must also highlight that I had actually cut myself off from everybody. So I would not meet up with my friends. I did not attend family functions at home. I exit all those WhatsApp groups and all the extra conversation. I would only be on those groups where we were discussing questions and answers, and I was really like dedicated to it. There was a cousin's wedding. I just came like for just the wedding day for a few hours. I wasn't there for any of the other functions. Like, I really cut myself off, and I was very focused on the preparation. So I wanted to give myself that time to get back to the world, see what my friends are doing and what others are doing. And I wanted to start with something easy. So the best thing for me at that point that made sense was to go back to the university and start from where I left. And that, I would say, was a cushion that worked for me, because I immediately reached out to one of the founders I had worked with, and he invited me to his office. He said, "Come, let's talk." And he just wanted to hear what I was interested in. And because he had seen me work under him directly, he knew what I brought to the table. So he said, we have an opening here at the YF program. Why don't you join? And I know you've done great work for the undergrads. Why don't you bring about the same transformation there? And it was like an immediate offer on the table that we'd love to have you back. And that was very encouraging to see, because at that point, when you face two rejections and suddenly somebody just pops up and shows the confidence in you, and they know you can do great things. So it pushed me a little further, and I said that this is my comfort zone. I know what I can do here, and that's why I started soft. Even at that point, I wasn't sure that the education space is for me. So I just started because I wanted to go back to a comfort zone. And yeah, things took a turn much later.
When was this? When did you go back to the comfort zone, which was the education space at that time? I'm guessing it's grown to be more than the comfort zone now, a lot more.
Yeah, this is the year 2017. So that's when I left the civil services prep, and then I joined Ashoka. And that's when I actually started thinking actively about what is it that I want to do, and where is it that I want to go. And what stayed with me, what helped me get those answers, was the fact that I had always been in touch with students throughout, even when I was working professionally, when I was not working, and then again at the postgraduate level, working with more senior college students, etc. And I realized that that stayed with me the whole time, and that helped me identify my own career path. And I said, this is what I like to do, and this is what I have expertise in, so why not consider something seriously in this direction.
Okay. I'm guessing then you would not have been asked about gap years. Have you ever been asked about your gap years anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So see, at Ashoka, it was not a question because they understood. I told them that I was preparing, and they had allowed me to leave to prepare. So the conversation did not come there. But definitely, when I was applying for the Fulbright, when I was applying for Harvard, I had to talk about what I had done where. So what I chose to do was I lay more emphasis on education, and I was in touch with so many students, and I was guiding them even through those 2+ years. And what I did was I went back and actually traced those kids, and I tried to quantify that who was I in touch with, what is it that I was doing, how was I supporting them even then. So I tried to show allied things that I was doing alongside preparing. And I tried to knit the conversation in that way, that my interest in education was always continuous. So of course, the civil services prep was there, and this is the advice that I would like to give everybody. This is the advice that I did not receive while preparing. Everybody says, no, if you want to prepare, you must have a laser focus. Please don't think about this or that. This exam requires all your attention and dedication. But I would say that always keep plan B open, even if you do it in a much smaller capacity and you don't give it that much time. But you should always know that if this doesn't work out, what is it that you would like to do? And the answer could be anything. The answer could be it could be a hobby that you enjoy. I mean, I know people who are working in in corporate offices, but now want to have art exhibitions because they've been constantly sketching and painting through their careers. So there's always that something that keeps you going, and you must keep that going. And you don't know if that will convert into a full-time profession later. I mean, life is it has its own unexpected twists and turns for you. So please do something beyond just the preparation, and do something that you enjoy, and that will, I mean, it saw me through at a point where I did not expect. So that is how I navigated through the gap year question.
Thanks for the excellent advice, Garima. In fact, I think not just even for plan B purposes, but for staying mentally healthy, it's important to have multiple things going on in your life. I think that advice that you should be laser focused is very misplaced. And it doesn't even work out that well because anxiety start to run off the roofs, off the roof, and it goes
Yeah,
crazy. So I don't think that's the most advisable. Then so
yeah.
many people who are clearing these days are anyway clearing alongside jobs and other things that they have going for them. So,
Yeah, very true. And now that I work with students, as I run my own admissions consultancy to support students preparing for liberal arts colleges, And you won't believe, I'll say almost 60 to 70% of students that I work with have had some experience of a mental health crisis, either in the past or in the present. And it is so rampant now, and particularly amongst young people. And the more I speak to students, the more I discover that you're not alone. That's going through this. Everybody is going through this in some form or capacity in the past or in the present. And it is very, very important to just find that zone that recharges us. And for me, it was meditation. And it just, I would just gravitate to it. I'd just wake up and do my practices without, without being pushed or forced by anybody or anything. And it has worked, it has given me clarity beyond, it has pushed me forward beyond what I can expect myself to do in my own capacity. And definitely, I would just, request everyone to pursue their own interests. It's very important.
Now I think I get where the name Evolving Being comes from.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. Okay, so how did you decide that you wanted to apply to university now at this point in your career? And how did you also pick the universities you want to apply to? Did you apply at other places as well?
Yeah, so actually, the process is the reverse for me. I always had people around me tell me to apply for the Fulbright and do a master's in the higher ed space, and I would always shun those voices. So I have somebody I had worked with a few years ago, and he's a dear friend. He's actually more than a friend. He's guided me through a lot. He would always he'd meet me in these get-togethers and he'd tell me, Karima, you should apply for the Fulbright. I know you will get it. You must apply. And I used to be like, no, I don't want to appear for this. I've never thought of education as what I want to get into. And I used to tell him, I want to I want to do an MBA program, and I will work towards that now. And he would appear in my life every few years and tell me, you must apply for this, you must apply for this. And I would just tell him, no, this is not my thing, this is not what I want to do. So finally, I gave in. I said, why not? He believes in me. He thinks there's potential. So let's apply. And that is what got me to actually apply. And the process for Fulbright is very different. So you first get the scholarship and then you start your application work. So it's not like you first get selected into the university and then you apply for funding. That's not how it works. It's a very long, it's almost a 2 year long process. And somebody who can guide you day one and tell you that, see, you must prepare like that. And I would say again, I have been fortunate that I received that guidance and I was getting that for since forever, and I was ignoring it. But as destiny has it, so I listened to that and I applied. And after you get the Fulbright scholarship, they actually apply on your behalf to universities. So I don't directly get to apply, and they offer you a lot of support system in terms of understanding what would be the right place for you to go to, and that helped me identify 4 universities that I wanted to apply to.
Could you elaborate a little more about how Fulbright tells you which universities to apply to and what kind of a support system do they have?
Yeah, absolutely. So just want to put a disclaimer out there that anything that I share is just my own viewpoint. I in no way represent Fulbright or represent the government of India or the government of the United States. I'm just sharing my personal experience out there. So Fulbright, for those who are not aware, it's a jointly funded fellowship offered by the government of the United States and the government of India to support scholars. I should say to support working professionals who want to excel in certain spheres of life. And there are 14 spheres that they have identified, ranging from public administration to law, higher education, which is my area, women's studies, journalism, and a few others. So, and Fulbright is actually it's a vast network. The U.S. government has tied up with over 160 countries, and they have exchange programs all across the globe. So the program I applied was through the India office, and as a part of that, they send Indian professionals abroad, and they also have some US citizens coming in. It's like an exchange program, and it's not just that you're getting money and they're funding your masters, but it is also that you are a cultural ambassador, and uh, you actually increase that mutual understanding between people of the two nations. So that's a little background and context into Fulbright, and they look for people who are all rounded. You don't just have to be an expert in the area that you want to apply in, but you should also show in what capacity you will be a great representative for India abroad. And what do you hope to do once you come back? So your commitment, your long-term vision, that plays a significant role. And yeah, and the process is like I mentioned earlier. You must so the applications are actually open right now. They will close in mid-May, and you can check the website for the actual deadline. I think it's 16th of May this year. And once you submit the application, you'll go through a selection process. If you move to the next round, there will be an interview. And after the interview, you will receive a final offer. And the application that you apply for is not to go for a master's this year, it is to go next year. So it will take you 1 year to go through this entire process. And if you're selected, you will apply to universities and move the year after. So it happens 1 year in advance, and that is something I'd like everyone to keep in mind, that plan early if you're considering scholarships like these.
Is there an age limit to Fulbright, like some of the other scholarships?
Um, no, I don't remember an age limit. No, they did not mention age limit as a qualifying criteria.
Okay, we have a question from someone. How do you solve the confusion and lack of clarity when you're trying to transition out of the UPSC prep phase?
Yeah. This is such a relevant question, and not just for UPSC. I would say generally in life, this question will haunt you at different stages, because learning never stops, and you're constantly battling different kind of career choices or personal choices, or professionally. I would say that start thinking about what is it that you want to do, and it would be great if you can make a 5 year or a 10-year plan for yourself, that even if you don't have any background in that space, and you decide that, see, this is what I want to be. And I can tell you what my vision board looked like. Once I identified that I want to grow in higher education, I knew that I wanted to start something of my own. And I also knew that I wanted to support other students who were not aware of a lot of these opportunities that are coming up in India. For instance, liberal arts is such a new domain. Here, everyone is used to applying to either engineering colleges or for medicine. But there are so many questions that are raised when you talk about liberal arts. So my mission was to support universities in adapting to these adapting critical thinking, learning how to learn, problem solving skills into their curriculum, and also supporting students to groom themselves to be eligible to be a part of such institutions. So I wanted to work at both ends of the spectrum. And once I had identified that, see, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to grow in, then I started working backwards. So I said, if I want to be a professional that others rely on, I need to get the credentials. And my background was in economics at my undergrad. So I started creating that career path, that I must get at least a degree that is relevant in the domain so that I can understand what I'm doing. And at the same time, you had the government release the National Education Policy, which completely, overhauled the vision for how they're looking at education. And it very well aligned with the vision that the liberal arts universities have, which is to inculcate critical thinking in students and make them go beyond uh, rote learning, which, like many of us are called Macaulay's Putras, which is that they are constantly, we were a slave to the education system that was passed down from the British for us. So how we can move away from that? So it just came at the right time, where India was making that transition, and I was jumping into the same space to support students and institutions make that transition. And then I said that I need to get that degree. So I started identifying how can I get that. And now the vision is to actually uh, expand my startup. So it's now liberal arts colleges. The next step is going to be to support Indian students get access to high quality education abroad. And right now, that information is so limited. Like, for instance, so many of us may not be aware of these scholarships that are there, or what is it that those universities look for, what is the right fit for me, etc. And as India's economy grows, the middle class grows, people's ability to pay and income grows, you will see a lot of students are going to go abroad. So just supporting them and make the right career choices is what now I'm focused on. So as you know, you have to have that broad level vision that this is what I want to do, and then you have to break it down and make those 5 year, 10 year plans and say this is what I need to do in order to achieve that vision. And that those steps will be very small. Those steps will look like get information on this piece, apply for this something, uh, go for an internship, even if it's an unpaid internship. So you have to break it up into smaller tasks and build towards it. It's not going to happen. I remember one of the questions that you had shared from one of the participants today was around how can you make that sudden shift, from UPSC to something else. So it's not sudden, it never is. You have to plan for it, and the more clarity you have, the vision board that you draw for yourself, invariably then you'll notice a lot of other people along the journey will come and start supporting you. So now that everybody in my network knows that I'm focused on higher education, anything that happens about higher education, I get to hear from someone or the other. There's a conference happening here, this team is coming there. So you suddenly notice that whatever you are moving towards, others around you will start gravitating that piece of information to you, and then you'll be able to make the most of it and new opportunities. I mean, I never researched Fulbright. Somebody told me you apply for Fulbright, right? So like that, you must start setting that vision out for yourself, and that will help you understand how you want to make that transition away from civil services to another fulfilling career path.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Garima. I also believe that it's a little bit like climbing a mountain. Somebody had used this analogy with me earlier that you don't really see the top of the mountain at the beginning. You take it one step by one step, and that's how you reach the mountain. You reach uh, you reach one peak, but that's one vantage point, and then you reach the other, and finally you reach the summit. So it's a little bit like that. You piece it all together. Um, I would like to open the floor to questions now. I see that somebody already has a question. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. We can have people asking questions one by one. Anybody who has a question can raise their hands. Looks like we have no questions, so perhaps we can take some of the questions that we had received earlier.
Hello, I would like to ask a question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Um, Ma'am, do you have any pointers to help with the Fulbright application process? This is what you have to keep in mind while you write the application. Do you have any pointers for that?
Yeah. Have you started your application? Are you looking at applying this year?
Yes, ma'am. I actually didn't, I wasn't paying attention to the date. Luckily, I attended the webinar and I got to know just now. Like you, someone in my circle was constantly saying, you have to apply, you have to apply. But nowadays, I got to know that the deadline is within 15 days. So,
Yeah. So, essentially what they are looking for is first, do you have clarity on what is it that you are doing and what is it that you want to do? So, focus on your journey, everything that you've done so far, and how it aligns with your vision in the future. And the second bit is how inclusive is your vision? So, are you only thinking about, okay, this is what I want to do next, this is how I will grow, but are you thinking about what difference are you going to make in the world around you? So, start looking at your application in terms of impact that you plan to create once you actually do that program. So, they want to support voices that will actually do something, make a difference, bring something back to the country. So try to focus a little more on that aspect. And of course, have an all rounded perspective. So don't just focus on, say, if you're applying for public administration, don't just talk about this is what I've done, this is what I want to do, this is what my vision is, but also talk about how you are an all-rounded individual in the application. Talk about how you can be a cultural ambassador. What else do you bring to the table? And of course, they have two components. So there is a personal statement and then there is a study objective. In the study objective, you should have clarity on what is it that you want to study and how will it help you in the future. It should not just be that, oh, this program is great, this university is great, and I feel like I learn a lot. That's a very generic study objective that you must stay away from. Focus on, and I can tell you, I chose the program. It's called Masters of Education in Education, Leadership, Organization, and Entrepreneurship. So there were three components to the program, and I focused on each aspect, how each my past experience uh, shows how I've worked in a leadership capacity. I spoke about how I've brought transformation in the organization space, and also what I want to do in the future in terms of entrepreneurship in education. So, using my past experience to create a very crystal clear objective in terms of how this program is going to help me get to the next step that I want to go to. And it should not be, oh, Harvard is a great university. That's why I want to go there. They will not pay attention to that. But you have to show, if once you get there, how are you going to use that knowledge to make a difference in the world? So also to show your larger vision and the impact that you can create around. And that is what makes a very crisp and clear application. And everybody loves to read an application where a student has clarity of thought. So don't be confused or jumble things around. Like, think first and then write. And yeah, that worked for me. So I hope that that works for you as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
If we have any other questions, we can take them. Otherwise, Garima, I would love to hear your parting thoughts for the audience today, especially the ex-UPSC crowd.
Okay, so I don't know if maybe let's wait for a minute or two if there are other questions, and if there are none, then I'll be happy to, share some advice.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Harsh.
Hi, ma'am. Hi. Yes, ma'am. Hello, everyone. So, currently I'm pursuing my MSc program in Srinagar University, and I want to tell that I'm also mentored by Garima ma'am, and she is very supportive. And I come to know about ma'am is from the Young India Fellowship application process at the time of interview, and I only want to tell that this ma'am is very supportive, and she's also very intelligent, and is, is, uh, ma'am is always mentoring to me, like I don't have a question. I want to tell only that.
No, I think Harsh is being very kind and generous. He's a hardworking student, so he reached out and he wanted help, and he works very hard. So, it's all your effort of where you get.
Yeah, I mean, basically come from the small town in Maharashtra, that is Malegaon in Nasik district, and and from means currently I'm pursuing the MSc in Water Science Policy at Srinagar University in Delhi NCR. And ma'am is the ma'am's contribution is very more, as she is always clearing my doubts and telling us all the things in academics or at the time of application or interviews. So,
Thank you, Harsh. Do we have anybody else who has a question?
Hi, Sargam. Can I go?
Please, Ashish, go ahead.
Hi, Garima. Congratulations on your admit. And just a quick question. I'm a current aspirant, so I haven't yet given up on the journey. But just trying to understand that there are certain points in time when, for example, you're doing a job and simultaneously you're preparing. But the thing that you said, that attempt till your heart is content, that you've given your best shot. So do you really think that for example, clearing in, for example, like a fourth or fifth attempt and not getting a service of your choice, and then having to make a decision about your career? For example, if I don't get into the IAS, then probably I wouldn't want to be in the service. So even taking that call, how that decision really impact? Like, have
Yeah.
you seen any
Yeah,
such cases?
yeah, definitely. There were people even in my YF batch that I knew of who had given multiple attempts and not cleared. And I think a great strategy for this is, see, in your initial years, you need to do a lot of work. You need to go through the books and you need to build that foundation. So first year, second year, it is okay. You need that time. But if you don't clear the exam then, and you don't want to give up on the dream, you must continue appearing for the exams, but don't do it exclusively. Because if you do it exclusively after, say, the second year, or for some people, it might be the third year, what happens is that if you don't get through, it plays on your mental stability significantly. And I have seen people across the board, be it IITians who had great jobs, to people who did not have jobs, who were freshers, everybody gets disbalanced after such a long duration of time and starts questioning what is it that they are capable of. So I would suggest then diversify your time. Spend some time preparing, and you don't need so much time after that because your base grounding work is done. You've also prepared for your optionals by then. You just need to continue revising and keeping up with the current affairs. Spend some time doing something else. It could be a part-time engagement. It could be working on your own startup. It could be, I don't know, supporting anyone else in whatever capacity. But uh, don't do it full time after the initial few years of investment, and continue chasing your dream. And if it has to happen, people while working have also cleared it. So that is the advice I would give in that case.
Right. Thank you.
I think we have no other questions. Garima?
Okay. No, I think.
Excuse me.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Mani.
Thank you. I am currently in a phase where I'm not very much into the UPSC preparation, but I have people around me suggesting me to like give an attempt to UPSC preparation and all. But I am not very keen into it. Like, it's not my dream as such, because it's not me who want to like really get into UPSC services and be a part of it, because I have other dreams of bringing change in many other ways. Like, I'm working in an NGO currently that is working with the government, collaborating and stuff like that, and I'm more interested in doing this sort of a thing rather than getting stuck in the loop of bureaucracy. So, I mean, having this call was really like, I was totally going low on confidence, because there is no one who can believe in me as to what I can achieve, as to what I have in my mind about my own career growth, or about my own ideas of, bringing change. But I've been told otherwise, that if I would get into services, there would be a lot of scope for me to bring change. But I think this call somehow has rekindled that, desire to like not get into such preparation and believe in myself. So just a reflection I thought I wanted to share. Thank you.
Would really said that this is not what you want to do. This is what somebody else wants you to do. So I would just request you not to pursue that path at all, not even waste a day on it. And it doesn't matter what it is. You want to work with an NGO, you want to make a difference anywhere else. If you keep at it, invariably it adds up and it pays off in ways more beautifully you can imagine than you can imagine. And I have seen that myself. I felt that my time, the preparation that I was doing, studying so many different subjects, history, polity, philosophy, environment, and I was like, where is this going to add up? And what did I spend time studying? Is it going to make a difference? And you won't believe how that made a difference. When I got onto the interview panel to interview students for the YF program, there were students from all kind of backgrounds. There was a philosophy major, there was a literature major, there were people from the science and tech space, and I was able to hold a sound conversation with them and ask them questions from their own discipline. And that's the day I realized that all that knowledge had not gone waste, and it added up to helping me become better at my own work. So at that point, it may sound like it was a wrong choice, or it doesn't make sense in retrospect. but it adds up, and it adds up so beautifully that it just, you don't know how. And I
Yeah.
would say trust the process, and please continue to make that effort that you're making. So don't leave that, and you will face failure. So I must say today we only discussed the highlights of my profile, but I would love to also discuss the low points where things did not work out even after a lot of effort, apart from civil services as well, even
Yeah.
professionally. So, and particularly around the pandemic, those 2 years were not just taxing in terms of just the healthcare crisis that was going on around us, but it was also, I see Sargam messaging me. Okay, so just to shed a little light on what happened, I was actually, I wanted to transition away from Ashoka because I felt I had learned everything I wanted to learn about that system, and I wanted to do something more. And I took up opportunities, and somehow the projects wouldn't work. So every 3 months, I would find myself in a position where the project I was doing, either it was not to my liking and I didn't want to continue, or the project would close down, or there would be some other legal, technical challenges that will come in, and invariably I couldn't continue. And this happened every few months. So there were so many jumps that I had. And then in the middle of that, I wanted to, the whole bug of being an entrepreneur was within me. So I started a paper bag manufacturing machine, something so different from what I was doing. And I just got that advice and I felt this is what one should do. It's closer to the environment, etc. And that business, even before it started, it just failed completely. COVID hit, so all the money we had put into buying the machinery, that was lost. We had taken a place, the rent and everything, that was gone. Raw materials, the money was lost. So I lost a lot of money, and I was losing my professional grounding because I was not being able to stick to a particular assignment for long for whatever reasons. Some were internal, some were external, but it was not happening. And this happened continuously for 2 years. So imagine having that backlog of, oh, I spend so much time in civil services, I don't have the work experience or the qualifications, I'm behind. And then suddenly the pandemic accentuating all these other things. Of course, amongst the health challenges with everyone not being unwell, losing some family members. And so it was just a bad, rough patch. But I must come back to this, that it was a meditation. I continued to do higher programs. I did the inner engineering, then I moved on to the Shunya program. I did yogasanas, and I didn't stop that journey because that was keeping me going. And I kept doing it day in and day out. And it just, something within me unfolded, which told me you must keep going, don't stop. Even if all this is happening, don't stop. And I kept going. And I must also confess that I had appeared for the Fulbright 1 year before that as well, just when the pandemic began. And it did not materialize the first year. So there was more failures. I'm just sharing the other side of the coin, that there's a lot that one does before such outcomes happen. And it didn't materialize. Of course, it was discouraging, but I said, doesn't matter, let's try again. So you have to keep trying and keep pushing yourself again and again, even if you hit the wall and you hit failure. And then when it materialized, it was like, Fulbright happened, and then Harvard happened, and then what, the money that I would have earned in those 2 years, I've got way more to fund my education. And then getting an opportunity to just be in the best institution and learn from the best that the world has to offer in terms of education. I mean, I get goosebumps and I feel like, really, like, am I getting this chance to go there? But I feel that all that not giving up added up. And now it doesn't matter. Now really it doesn't matter. You lost 2 years, or you lost your professional standing, or you did not do whatever, or you jumped so many jobs. Eventually what happened was, because of those jumps, I got I got like an overview of what higher ed looks like in India. From working for, I was the assistant program director for a program that closed before it could begin. I did consulting work for the Association of Commonwealth Universities, so that's an international organization. That work couldn't continue. Then, of course, like I did 2, 3 worked with career counselors around, and now I feel like as I'm getting into Harvard, if somebody asks me what education looks like in India today, I'm better qualified to talk about it, vis-a-vis being associated only with one institution and understanding how that was built and grown. So nothing goes waste. Any experience you've had, be it studying or be it working or volunteering, nothing goes waste. And that is what I have learned so far. And I know that once I'm in, now I'll be competing with everybody who's done significant stuff like that around. So, the bar is just pushed higher. And I know that even if I'm not the best or the greatest, I have to keep pushing, keep working, keep working, keep working. So the formula I have understood, that is that even if failure comes, you don't have to stop, you have to keep going. And that is actually my parting message that I wanted to share, that you must not get discouraged, even if the results are not materializing immediately. You must listen to that voice inside and just follow it through till the end. And beautiful things happen. How things compound and you get more than you asked for. So, I know each one of us are unique and we have our own inbuilt, innate potential that nobody can match. Everyone has that potential, and you get as far as you can walk. So, just walk your path, and there's place for all of us in this world. And I know we can make a big difference. So I just like to encourage all of you to listen to that inner voice and never give up.
Thank you so much, Garima, for ending with that parting advice and such an uplifting note. I hope everybody leaves today inspired a little bit more to follow their own calling and to not give up.
Hello.
Sonal, there's a lot of disturbance at your end. Uh,
Hello.
yes, you're audible.
Uh, First of all, thank you for the session. And my question is that I am trying to prepare for the UPSC from the past 3 years, and now I'm thinking to transitioning. So, Garima, can you please suggest what else career option we can pursue? Because after the college, I started the preparation.
Yeah, so now I would suggest you should ask yourself what are the subjects that you enjoyed studying. So if you have, you don't have professional experience and you're just starting out, you have studied so much in those last 3 years. Try to understand what is it that you enjoy doing more versus what is it that you don't enjoy doing, and use that as a stepping stone to creating a path in that direction. So it could be, say, maybe you loved reading about the environment. You could apply to a lot of these think tanks that work for climate change. There's so much buzz around happening. And even if you feel like, oh, I'll not get a job immediately, go for internships, go for unpaid internships. Just offer yourself and your work and gain credibility. Do some project for somebody, even if you have to do it for free, because that will build a body of work that you can refer to when you are applying for full-time jobs. So the starting point would be look for subjects that you are interested in reading genuinely. You like studying that, and try to find a career path in that direction.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we can call it a wrap for today.
And what I'll do is I'll just drop my email address here. So even if you're hesitating to ask question now, or if something else hits you at a later point, here is my email address. So feel free to write in, and I'd love to catch up and chat with you. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and I hope you guys go ahead and do great things.
Thank you, Garima. Thank you so much for your email address. I hope everyone's noted that. All right. I think we can end the call now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
Garima. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.